Okay, so in this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through some of the steps in order to find research for your papers. So this is sort of one of the ways that you can do it, and it's the way that I would do it. But there are other ways that you can do it just by Googling articles online. I would recommend going through the university. That way you know you're going to get full access to a bunch of articles that have been peer reviewed and they are reliable sources. So first step, go to the library homepage. And here you'll find just a basic search bar, quick find option. There are others though, so you can look up the books that are in the library, you can look up articles, you can look up databases, or you could just do a search. So for example, I might want to search Timothy Finley. And one of the search tips that you can do is to use plus signs, and it will look up both sets of words. And instead of, if I put quotations around all of this information, it will find those words together. But I just want to open search and we'll see what comes up. So I should get a lot of hits here. So yeah, 606 results just for a Timothy Finley search with the wars. So you could find obviously the actual book, but we want journal articles, so what other people have written about the book. So we could click on peer-reviewed journal articles, full text online. I have it specified in the instructions that they have to be peer-reviewed journals, so you don't necessarily have to click that off, but that's good to know. You know, some of your other classes might insist that you get peer-reviewed articles. And it specifies, it gives you a little bit more options. So what type of source are you looking for? Are we looking for articles, book chapters, books, etc.? If you need to specify the date, so say your class is asking you to get more recent sources, you can select, sources from the last 20 years, or in this case, I don't care when the article is from. In English, we don't necessarily have to have that recent research the way that the sciences do, so I don't really worry too much about the publication date of the articles you're going to find. And it lists a bunch of different authors, so we're not going to click on any of that, but we'll go down to apply filters and it'll maybe narrow this down a little bit. And then usually what I would do is just scan titles. If some of these look interesting, like this one's kind of interesting. And then I also look to see if full text is available. And most of them do have full text now, so that will give you access to the full article. Some of these are books, book chapters. Some of them are just articles in journals. So this journal is English Studies in Canada. So let's just click on that, see what we get. So you'll see the page open up. So this is information about this article. It says it's peer reviewed. And this is just giving you a list here. So if I want to access the full text, I have different options of how I can track down that article, and it's available through all these different databases. So CBCA Education is a database, Gale Cengage is a database, Literature Online is a database. So let's just try this first one. It shouldn't really matter which one you click on, but if one doesn't work, you might want to click on the next one in the lineup. So yeah, it looks like this one has the full text there. So you might want to download it if you think it's a strong article. Like usually I would just scan through and see if it has anything of interest that I might want to use in my essay. Um, this one might not. I mean, I'd have to read a little bit more about it. But I found one, so we know it works. But if we go back, we can again return to our lists and keep searching. So yeah, if you want to do it that way, that's probably the easiest, quickest way of looking up sources. Other ways that you could do it, you could go in and find a database. So you could go English and search, and then it'll list you all of the major databases that are frequently used to find articles in English. I like Expanded Academic. That's usually a good one. There's lots that you can sort of use in order to do your searches. You might want to do, again, instead of doing just the basic search, usually you can do an advanced search. So we'll do an advanced search. And this time let's try, we'll do Wilfred Owen. Sometimes you have to put their last name first. That's how they're usually sort of cataloged. And we'll try Dulce Decorum Est, the poem, put those words in there, and we'll try searching that. So we got a couple hits here. This one looks kind of interesting, so if you click on it, again, you should be able to access that article. It tells you the name of the author, so who wrote this discussion, this article. It tells you the name of the journal, and the numbers after it refer to the volume and issue number. And then the exact issue is spring 2018. You have the DOI here, so in some cases you're asked to put the DOI in your reference page. And if I wanted to download this article, you can click download and it should download it to your desktop, usually as a PDF. And then that way you can print it off if you're somebody who likes reading a hard copy of the article. That way you can highlight it and find quotations in it that you might want to use in your essay. Yeah, so this one actually looks pretty good. It gives you some information about Wilfred Owen in his time at war. A little bit of historical background, and also breaks down some of the passages in the poem itself. So if I decided that this was a really strong article and I wanted to quote from this, I would have to give credit to the author, in this case Stephen Benz, who wrote this article. So let's just find a quote, say, that I might want to use in my essay. Okay, so I'm just going to scan through and see if any quotations or passages stick out to me. Okay, so I like this one. So the soldiers we see in this scene are a far cry from the robust soldiers typically depicted in recruiting posters and propaganda. So if I had printed this out, you can highlight um, that info. Um, and if you wanted to, copy those lines, you might open up, a document and make sure that you're going to give credit to the author of those words. So I'll just take a minute here and open up a Word document. Okay, so I've highlighted those words on the page, and then I'm going to open up my Word document here. And okay, so these are the words from the article, and I'll just write the author's name here so I don't forget where it's from. Stephen Benz. Okay, got that right. Okay, so if I was going to use this in my paper, I would have to make sure that any words that I use are going to be in quotation marks, and I want to make sure that it's different enough from the original that I'm not plagiarizing this author's writing. So one way to do that is to give credit to the author by using a signal phrase. So according to Stephen Benz in his discussion of Owen's poem, he argues that that the soldiers in this scene are a far cry from the robust soldiers typically depicted in recruiting, posters, and propaganda. Okay, so that's where I want to end my sentence. And then page numbers. If I had a PDF, it might give me page numbers, but this one doesn't here. We'll just try downloading it and see if it comes up with page numbers. Okay, so it does. So yeah, I'd have to find that section again. So yeah, sometimes you have to download it in order to make sure that you get the correct page numbers. Okay, so this is our quote here, and it's on page, let's see, where are we? We're on page 4. So I would have to include that information in my citation. So let's just read this again, make sure it looks okay. So according to Stephen Benz, in his discussion of Owen's poem, he argues that the soldiers, and I've taken out some words here, so I've put 3 dots as a way to indicate that I've removed content from the original quote. And so that just signals to the reader that some words have been removed. So he argues that the soldiers in the scene are a far cry from the robust soldiers typically depicted in recruiting posters and propaganda. And I have the author's name here, and I have the page number, so I can safely say that I've avoided plagiarizing this author. I've put quotation marks around his exact words, so I know that I'm not accidentally stealing from what he's trying to say. You could, again, do it in other ways. So you maybe want to integrate this quotation in a different way. So you could say Owen's depiction of soldiers are a far cry, cry from the robust soldiers typically depicted in recruiting posters and propaganda. Okay, so in that case, I haven't introduced the author in a signal phrase. So I should really put his name, last name, and page number where I found the quote after his quotation. So yeah, you can take a few words. You could take the whole section. You can remove words, but make sure that you're putting quotation marks around any words that are not your own, that you've read somewhere else. Okay, and then that's basically one way to use research in your paper is to find articles like these and scan through and find, highlight interesting passages that you think might be useful in your argument or support your point of view in terms of your reading of the text. And make sure you give proper credit to the author who originally wrote that article. And then also at the end of your paper, you'll have your works cited page, and you'll use that information to write your references. So Benz, Stephen, and then we have the name of the article, so the poet as rhetor. I'd have to write the whole article out here, or the whole name. So one little sneaky tip that you can do is to actually use the databases as a guideline for your citation. So there's a little thing called citation tool, and you can select APA Chicago MLA, and it gives you basically a correct citation format already done. So that's, again, the easiest way of doing it. I don't expect you to memorize how to do it. I, have to go back to my MLA reference guide and make sure that I do it correctly every time that I'm writing a works cited page, just because they do update it and try to, they start changing, comma placements and what info needs to be added and what doesn't. So this way, you're doing it right. Just make sure that you have the same indents, same punctuation as this example. So that one's pretty simple. I'll try here, copy paste. I'll just move this one here. Oh, see, when you paste it in, it doesn't stay quite the same. So yeah, you do have to sort of make sure that it is formatted correctly. So this is not correct, but you can just make sure that you format it correctly. And again, you'll have to tweak it a little bit, but this is a basic example of how you might use research in your paper. Okay, so one more thing I want to show you is looking through databases. So you don't have to put English. You can choose any other subject. So, if you have to do a history paper, you can find all the the history databases, or you can search for a database. So like Google Scholar is a commonly used one. And if you access it through the U of R library, you can make sure that you have accessible links. So sometimes when you just go to Google Scholar without logging in through the library, it won't give you access to every single article. And even this way, you don't get access to every article, but the ones that have links at the side do give you direct access to those articles. So it's just another little way of making sure that you find easy access to your articles. So Google Scholar is a good one to know how to do.